In Parshat Vayetze, Pasuk Tet Zayin, Yaakov wakes up, and it seems he wakes up twice. What time is it when he wakes up the first time? Might be in the middle of the night. Vayikatz Yaakov Mishnato v'yomer Achein Yesh Hashem Makom Hazeh v'anochi lo yadati. He wakes up and he realizes there's godliness in this place. There's a divine presence. He wasn't even aware. He was taken by surprise, which means that at the time when he went to sleep, he did not have in mind that he was going to have a Hitgalut Hashem, a divine revelation. And sometimes that's how it falls upon us, shall we say. And as the Hasidim would say, mitaruta be'itaruta de le'ela, from an awakening from above. He wasn't prepared for it. He didn't think about it, right? We'll see that Chazal have different ideas about what does it mean that he was in this place and he's surprised that the presence of Hashem is there. Then why is he there? What motivated him to be there? Why did the story start such as it did? Vayivgava makom vayalin sham, which certainly sounded initially like there was some kind of purposiveness. So why is he so surprised? Vayora vayomar mano ra hamakom hazeh ein zekim beit elokim v'zeh shar hashamayim. He's afraid, and he states, "Look how awesome or how terrible this place is," in the sense of terrific. Not of great, but of filled with terror. Manora, awe-filled. Yamim noraim, days of awe, that kind of idea. This is the house of God. This is the gateway to Shemayim. And then, Pasuk Yud Chet, Vayeshkem Yaakov baboker, Vayikach et ha'even asher samra shotav v'yasam v'tamatziva, Vayitzok shemen al rosha, an action. Yaakov then wakes up in the morning. He already woke up. Now he woke up again. He takes this stone that he had placed mira'ashotav, near his head, under his head, depending how you want to read it. Vayasim otamatzeva, he makes it into a monument and he pours oil on top of it. Vayikra et shem makomahu Beit El, v'ulam luz shem ha'ir larishona. Yaakov is the one who calls it Beit El. And indeed, its name prior was Luz. Then Yaakov responds to what Hashem had told him previously and states a neder, makes a pledge. Vayidar Yaakov neder lemor miel ukimni madi ushmarani baderach hazer shmechi holech v'natani lechem echol beged lilbosh. If God will protect me in the way that I'm going to go, Hashem will be with me. He'll protect me in the way that I'm going to go. Give me bread to eat and clothing to wear. V'shavti v'it shalom beit avi v'haya Hashem li l'elokim. I will return. And if I will return, or if I will return, a bit of a question, right? I'll come back in peace to my father's house, and Hashem will be unto me as a God. What was going to happen if it didn't happen? If it didn't happen that way, would Hashem not be for him as a God? Of course he would. So what does that statement mean? Let me just finish one more sentence, Karen, and I'll try to be more attentive today than I was last week. This stone, which I have placed as a monument, will be a house of Hashem. And everything that you will give me, talking to Hashem, I will give a tithe, 1/10, I will give to you. Okay, that's the pshat that we're looking at today. So let's talk. Karen, please go ahead.
To me, this wording, first you had Hashem talking to Yaakov, and now you have Yaakov replying. For some reason, the wording of this, it sounds like a betrothal to me. They're like, I'll be with you, I'll guard you, I'll take care of you. And then the other one is, echoing it back. It has more of a betrothal feel than a covenantal, like a law kind of thing to me, which I just wanted to.
Very interesting. And let's say it's a covenant of care.
A covenant of care. Okay. Yeah, but
I'll guard you, I'll protect you, I'll take care of you, I'll bring you back home. Yaakov responds, I take a neder, right? The if then is, if all these things happen, then I will give a tithe, a 10th, seras renulach, seems to be the idea. But a covenant between two parties. There isn't any formal announcement, I'm making a covenant with you, or a reverse, I'm making a covenant with you, but it seems to be implied in some way. right? But you're right. It has the fact that so much of it seems to be about caring and
I will not forsake you.
right,
and-
right. That's significant for sure, Shelley, go ahead.
Nowadays, if you something's going wrong in your life or something like that, then if you say, God, if you take care of this situation and you do this, that, and the other thing, I will either give a whole bunch of something, or I will take on a new mitzvah or something like that. That's not going to exactly be, it's frowned upon. It may be.
It is.
You're almost bribing God. You're not supposed to bribe God. That's all I'm saying is that.
I hear it. You could take a mechanistic view of this, but maybe Yaakov is just saying, I'm taking a neder that if this will work out, Kodesh Baruch Hu, I'm going to try to be better or not better. I'm gonna give a tithe of everything that I have.
And if it doesn't work out the way, I'm not an avot or an imahot. If it doesn't work out the way that that you want it, because God decides that's not how He wants it, does that mean that I shouldn't be doing that thing? Okay, I'm not gonna do this anymore. I'm not gonna tithe. I'm not gonna, whatever I said I was gonna do. Hell, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm off.
Say it like this. I hear what you're saying, but I think it's the emphasis needs to be on the other syllable here, which is Ribono Shel Olam, you've given me all these promises, and I'm making a neder that when all these things are fulfilled, I will do the following. A person could take that on. Why not? That's what a neder is. A person says, I'm going to give thanks. I'm going to do this in return. It's not a question of it really, as I myself stated it, if then, as much as when these things come to pass. So I'm taking a neder that this is what I'm going to be doing. He made it into something covenantal. The promises that Hashem gave to Yaakov, he didn't say to him, and now take the following neder, or here's the following ceremony. Contrast this with Avram Avinu, where there's the covenant between the parts, the covenant of the Brit Milah, right? So you have Brit Ben Betarim and Brit Milah. And with Yaakov, it's not actually a new covenant per se, but Yaakov seems to make it into something more covenantal by having the back and forth of a response. Contrast that with Yitzchak and Parsha Toldot. Hashem speaks to Yitzchak Avinu. You remember, we learned this together. He has this whole chapter 26. Hashem appears to him. Don't go down. I'll be with you, just as Avram was with you. It doesn't continue with Yitzchak saying, Ribono Shel Olam, thank you so much. Here are 5 things I'm doing. That's it. It's just, it moves on. But Yeshu Yitzchak Bigrar. Yeah. Karen responded to that, and that's why I compared it to a ketubah, interesting, or to something marital. Yeah, because there's much, right, volitional, and it wasn't in the formalism of a covenant the way it was stated. Yeah, true. Tamar, go ahead, please.
Lahavdil, but this, it reminds me, Yaakov's words remind me of something I read in the paper just the other day about a young man, a teenager really, who was caught under his collapsed building in the earthquake in Turkey. And he left a message on his cell phone. And the bulk of the message was, if I survive, there are things I want to do. If I live, there are things I want to do. And Yaakov, in a way, he's in a position here. He doesn't know what's going to happen to him. He doesn't know what the end will be. So if I survive, then, that type of thing.
Okay. And he is, in a certain way, down and out. I mean, he knows where he's going, but doesn't know what's going to happen next. A lot of uncertainty. So for sure, that's a part of it. I think it is legitimate, by the way. I don't know that it's a bribe. I think it's more a sense of there's a petitional component, which is going to be played out by the by whatever by whatever happens next, and I will have these new practices, things I'm going to do differently, things like that, and there is a restatement, though, as Karen pointed out, also like a restatement. He goes back line by line. Before we get to the lines themselves, though, the question of location, and Yaakov is surprised that he's there. We know some of the midrashim already, but just to recognize that the fact that Yaakov announces he's in the Beit Elokim, what does he mean by that? So oftentimes we run That's Yerushalayim. Maybe Eretz Yisrael. Where is it? So we have a rather lengthy Rashi trying to explain to us what is happening. And Vanochi lo yadati, I did not know. Rashi thinks it means if I had known, I wouldn't have ever gone to sleep here. It would be too, there's too much holiness here. How could I let myself drift to sleep? I'd have to really be very much awake and aware of my surroundings. But what's interesting is he needed to fall asleep in order to have the nevuah. So which is it? But that's Rashi's rendering from the Medrash. Right? Shanti Makom Kazeh, Kadosh Kazeh. It's such a holy place. Okay. The Rashbam, for instance, taking a little bit of a different direction. I thought that I could go to sleep in this place because I thought that it was a place that is chol. And now it turns out it is a place of Kodesh. V'achein, the word achein here is like achein nodah hadavar. In Sefer Shmot, lo or behold, or, and yet see how the matter has become known. So achein, yesh Hashem makom hazeh, v'anachlu yadati. Alas, I realize that this is the case. Rashi quotes from Breisheet Rabbah. Amar Rabbi Lazar b'shem Rabbi Yossi ben Zimra, hasulam hazeh, umeid be'er sheva, emtza shipu'o, magia keneged beit hamikdash. So we have a ladder. Now we're looking at the geography of Eretz Yisrael. Rashi taking as a given that Beit El is a place on the map that you could go to today. By the way, there is a place called Beit El. It's a yishuv. You could go there, which is pretty much in the vicinity of Beit El. Beit El is a place where Avram Avinu had been in his time, the beginning of Sefer Breisheet and Parshat Lech Lecha, where it describes Avram Avinu being there. But Beit El, just to open it up a little, does not have to mean a particular location. It could be any place where Hashem's presence is found is a Beit El. Could be. But Rashi, from the Medrash, straight from among the Chachmei HaTalmud, tell us that there's a ladder whose rungs are planted on terra firma in Beersheba, which makes it a holy place in connection to Shemayim. The top of it is over the area of Beit El. And in the middle of it, we find something else, which is it's Yerushalayim. Sorry, Shelley, you already want to say something?
It seems to me, though, that if you wanted to encounter God, you would have to do it when you were asleep. So the fact that I wouldn't have slept here if I didn't if I knew it was a holy place. If you wanted to encounter God, isn't that exactly what you would do?
Well said. Well said. That's what I was saying. That's a restatement. What the question I was basically asking before. What does it mean if I had known I wouldn't have slept in this place? Well, how else are you going to have the encounter with Hashem? But here's the point. He didn't think it was going to happen. He wasn't expecting it. Vayetze Yaakov Beersheva v'yelech Harana is not about a spiritual pilgrimage. It's listening to your parents and going up to where they expect you to be, which is in Haran, in Aram Naharan. Go live with Uncle Lavan. So he's avoiding falling asleep in a place which was known to be a holy place. Ergo, he did not, according to Rashi, he didn't fall asleep in Yerushalayim. Where did he sleep? Somewhere else, somewhere he thought was chol. You thought it was chol, but actually the spot where you fell asleep is actually a place that is great, that is incredibly holy. Right? Sheber Sheva Omeid Bidroma Shel Yisrael, Yerushalayim Bitzfona Bigvul Sheben Yehuda Binyamin, Ubeit El B'Tzafon Shel Nachla Binyamin. Beit El is at the northern part of the place of the tribe of Binyamin. Bigvul Sheben Binyamin Vein Bnei Yosef. So you have Beersheba up to Yerushalayim. That's one canton. That's Malchut Yehuda, Shevet Yehuda. Shevet Binyamin, also part of Malchut Yehuda, from Yerushalayim up to Beit El. And past Beit El is already Bnei Yosef. Nimsa Sulam Shiraglav Beersheva, V'rosho B'Beit El, Magia Emtza Shipuo Neged Yerushalayim. right? The middle of its incline is in Yerushalayim. The Hashem said, "Tzaddik zeh ba beit maloni v'yipater b'lo lina." Can it be that tzaddik is going to come to the place where I reside, as it were, right? So now he's going to come, and I'm not going to. He's not going to sleep over. There's a mitzvah called lina. When you go to Yerushalayim to offer korbanot, you mustn't come in and out the same day. You have to sleep over that night in order to demonstrate that you weren't in a rush. Shem says, when Yaakov passes through Yerushalayim, which is on the way from the bottom of the ladder to the top of the ladder, I cannot let him pass without an opportunity to sleep over. So Shem is, again, just within Rashi, essentially declaring, I made him go to sleep. Kiva Hashemesh, the sun suddenly went down. And he went to sleep. Because what do you do in antiquity when you're traveling and there are no street lights and you don't even have a torch, and then suddenly it's nighttime? Sleep. What else are you going to do? That's what he did. Right? Since Chazal describe, right, or Ulafisha Amru, Rabotenu, Sha'amar Kashbar, since our sages taught in the Gemara and Chulin that Hashem said, this tzaddik is passing through. Can he go through without sleeping over? Further, Yaakov Kar'al Yerushalayim Beit El, right? The Gemara and Psachim says that Yerushalayim was called Beit El. In other words, even according to Rashi, there is Beit El, border of Binyamin and Bnei Yosef's territory, north of Yerushalayim. And then there's a place called Yerushalayim, which Yaakov Avinu referred to as Beit El. And that, Vizu, lose, he, Velo Yerushalayim. The one that is Beit El, that is farther north, that one used to be called Luz and was renamed. Vehechad Lamdu, Rashi goes on. Lomar Kain, how could they have possibly said this? There's a Beit El that is named by Yaakov, Beit El, that's actually Yerushalayim. That's where he really slept. That's the Shara Shamayim. That's the Beit Elokim. There's another place called Beit El that's farther north. So how did they learn how to say both of those things? In other words, Rashi himself, you could say tied up in midrashic knots, is now claiming that, of course, Yaakov had this dream when he's sleeping in Yerushalayim. But there's another place that is well known to be called Beit El, that used to be called Luz, that's north of Yerushalayim. How could he be in two places at once? Simple. Move the mountain. Ani Omer, Rashi says, Shene'akar Har Moriah ubalakan. Har Moriah was uprooted and moved here. Where is here? To north of Yerushalayim. Zui kfitzat haaretz ha'amura b'shchitat chulin. In the Gemara, Masech Chulin, in the parak called Shchitat Chulin, that's what it means. The whole land moved. Sheba Beit HaMikdash likrato ad Beit El. That the Beit HaMikdash moved, the place of it, Yerushalayim moved, to be underneath him in Beit El, to greet him. V'zehu va'yifga b'makom. That means he encountered the place. Yeah? So what does it mean he encountered the place? Because the place was coming toward him. So right away, of course, you smile a bit and you say, well, okay, I guess. But you're forgetting an important point. Yaakov was asleep in a dreamscape of prophecy. We can move mountains, can't we? If we put our mind to it. You ever heard the expression, we can move mountains? Yaakov can move mountains. Not Yaakov, but Hashem can move mountains to greet Yaakov. And it doesn't have to mean, as again, a 5-year-old child would learn Chumash and say, Hashem could do anything. So he picked up the mountain and he moved the mountain. Could be. Those of us who are a little more steeped in the world of the Rambam, a little more rationalistic, we're sort of wondering, it's a flying mountain, it's moving, it's coming from point A to point B. But really it is, because we've all been asleep and we've had dreams. And when it's a prophetic dream, that is exactly what happens. So wherever he is geographically, which he knows is not actually Yerushalayim, because he's in Beit El, which is farther north of the place of Har Moriah. He wakes up and he says, but I dafka went to bed in a place that was Chol. And yet there's a Shara Shamayim. Yeah. To paraphrase a famous singer, Lahavdol Fe'avdol, in my mind, I'm going to Yerushalayim. Huh? And he went, and it came to him in Beit El, which used to be called Luz, but it's the Beit Elokim, but it's the Shar Shamayim, because he's asleep where? Davka, in physically in one place, but spiritually he's very much in another place. And the mountain came to greet him. Sheba Beit Hamikdash likrato ad Beit El. Right? That's the Shar Hashamayim, the Beit Elokim. Listen to the language also. This place is now called a house. There's no house standing. It's called a gate. There's no gate. Yeah. This is the Gemara in Pesachim on Peichet that describes that Yaakov referred to the Beit HaMikdash as Beit El. Avram Avinu saw it as a har, just as a mountain. Har HaMoriah, Har HaElokim. Yeah. Behar Hashem Yera'eh. Yitzchak Avinu, the notion of the Sadeh. Right? The Sadeh Shebercho Hashem. Vayetz Yitzchak Lasuach Basadeh. It's a field. That's what he calls the place of the Beit HaMikdash, the place where he communes with Hashem. Davens to Hashem. Yaakov, Bayit. Where's the Bayit? On a certain level, Zebabayit. I'm not suggesting here that there's no importance to Kedushat Makom. I'm suggesting that the Kedushat Makom comes to Yitzchak, and we're on the same theme of Rashi that we had at the beginning of the Parsha. When a tzaddik leaves a place, there's an impression that he made when he was there, and the Pana Ziva, Pana Hadara, all these different aspects. When the tzaddik leaves, the place feels a loss. So also when the tzaddik arrives, the place gains something. So where Yaakov went here, the fact that Yerushalayim comes to him is in and of itself, I think, a very important and hopeful message. Let's say. And by the by, Zeshar Shemaim Rashi further along points out, Makom Tfilah La'alot Tfilatam Shamayma. It's a place where Tfilah goes up to Shemaim. It got great reception here in Tfilah. But the Medrash Umidrasho Shebeit Mikdash Shomala Mechuvan Keneged Beit Mikdash Shomata. What's the Shar Shamayim and the Beit Elokim, etc.? It's the Shar. There are two Batei Mikdash. One is down below. The other one is his mirror image in Shamayim. When you have the two lined up, that's what we're learning here. The Shar Shamayim, the gateway, and the ladder connecting Shamayim and Aretz, connecting the place of Tefillah down below and the place of Tefillah on high, as it were. It's repository in Shamayim. I have one more thing to say here, but it's not in the initial printing of Rashi in Defus Rishon, so I skipped it, and I'm saying it chronologically at the end. But first, I want to take questions and comments, Shelley and anyone else, and then we'll get back to one more component to this, just to turn your mind even further. Shelley, go ahead.
I can't buy into the premise that he didn't expect or didn't want to hear from God.
Didn't say we didn't want to. Whoa, don't put words in my mouth. The point was he wasn't going to sleep in the temple. He's going to sleep in the Mikdash. He's not going to sleep in Yerushalayim, so I'm going to sleep.
He wanted to have the encounter with God, and he wanted to have it very badly, or he wouldn't have made that covenant, neder, whatever. He's fleeing. It's not only because his parents tell him to go. It's what happened with his brother, and he's got to wonder, is God going to be with me somehow with what I did with this? Maybe I don't even deserve protection. He had to desperately want to have this encounter with God.
But not in that place where, again, now you're going like cause. Like, what did he think? What did he not think? Maybe not. The point was, when we have in the Pshat, when he woke up, he was afraid when he woke up. And he said, wow, I can't believe it. I didn't realize how awesome is this place. It's the Beit Elokim. Why is he surprised? If he's in Yerushalayim, why is he surprised? If he's in Beit El, that's why he's surprised. How could he be calling the place of Beit El as the Beit Elokim? And this is the Shara Shamayim, etc. The answer is because Yerushalayim came to him where he was.
Which Beit El did Avraham build a Mizbeach on when he was coming into the land?
Seems to be the same one. Bein Beit El Vein Ha'ai.
Okay, but then he might know that. There might be the tradition, and he might expect to see God because that's where Zaidi Avraham This,
It
you know,
very well could be. It very well could be. It could be. I'm giving you one reading. It's Rashi's reading is that he's surprised. If I had known, I would not sleep here, right? But because we have to account for the fact that in the Torah it does say that he's surprised. He cuts, means he woke up suddenly. Yeah. So in this rendering, though, the point is he didn't intend to fall asleep in Yerushalayim, but Yerushalayim came to him where he was. Now, the imagery of the ladder is instructive because the ladder is not only connecting Shemaim and Aretz, but whereas we thought that it meant that the ladder is a vertical ladder, now it turns out it's like on a 45-degree angle. Rungs the feet of it are planted in Beersheba. The top of it is in Beit El. The midpoint of it is Yerushalayim. This is something for consideration. In Rav Meidan's book on Breisheet, he draws the ladder as two pieces of the same ladder. And he puts Yaakov's body lying in a north-south axis. His feet are in Beersheba. His head is in Beit El, and his heart is in Yerushalayim. And the ladder is not a ladder that looks like this, but a ladder that looks like this. The feet are at the bottom on one side, the head is on the other, and where it goes up and the two of them meet in Shemayim, which is really one ladder, is over the heart. It's a beautiful idea. It's very creative. Yeah, instead of picturing one ladder, because why do you say the midpoint of the ladder is here somehow? So what? It's a gateway to get to Beit El, which is holier? No, so if you picture it like this, then the top of it goes in that direction, and it's Davka over the heart, and that's where it is, geographically, the Yerushalayim to Beit El is closer than Yerushalayim down to Beersheba. Why is that? So it's more of the torso, the feet, etc. It's a nice idea, a nice image.
How does he explain the malachim going up and down? What's that image? So simultaneously.
Yeah. And he thinks that's what Rashi means when Emtza Shipu'o is the middle of its incline. So he thinks it can't really be literally be there. In the first printing of Rashi, apparently in Tefus Rishon, as it's known, and in Breisheet Rabbah and in the Ramban, it says Emtza Shipu'o. It says Shipu'o, which is on its incline. Its incline goes too. So, and it was the Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi, who was one of the commentators on Rashi, who said that what Shipu'o means is Emtza Shipu'o, not that the end of the incline, which is the top of it, because Yaakov is in Luz, but the feet are in Beersheba, the top is Keneged Beit Hamikdash, right? And then Yaakov would be outside of the Sulam because he'd be farther north. If the Sulam is like this, and it goes from Beersheba to Yerushalayim, so then he's all the way farther north. It's not even on the screen. Farther than Beit El, so he's not even under the ladder. He's looking back at a ladder. Once we come to this. Wait 1 second. iPad, you have your hand up, so just identify yourself and say hello. And
Hi, it's me, Rabbi.
oh, hi, Debbie. I didn't notice it was you.
Sorry, I have a new iPad. I don't know why.
Go for it. Explain the question. Go ahead.
I love what you just said with the ladder over the heart, because in listening to a lot of other comments, I'm having the good fortune of spending a lot of time subbing at the academy in the morning, as you probably know from Kobe. And I see our youth, the future of Judaism, on a regular basis, including my grandchildren, Sarah mainly, who's still at Torah, making these commitments to mitzvot with
Big
no
thing.
sense of quote unquote bribe. They're
sure.
doing it from the heart. They want it to happen, but like the comment that Tamar made about this young man in Turkey and from the hurricane.
Earthquake, yeah.
I love that interpretation. And the reality is that I see a lot of our own young people in our community who view it like that.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for that. Thank you for that comment.
My pleasure.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Nice. Okay, so I want to share with you something else in Rashi, which again, it's not a diffuse Rishon of Rashi, but is a fascinating idea. And before you jump on it and say like, oh, come on. In this quotation, it's actually from the Gemara. Again, even though it's not in the it's not actually in the Diffus Rishon edition of Rashi, and you'll see why momentarily. So Rashi says, if you will ask, how could it be that Yaakov passed by the Beit Mikdash and he didn't think to stop? Right? Everybody knew that place. It was a famous place. Why didn't he stop? So like, how did his heart not cause him to want to stop there? How did he not stop to daven in the place where his parents had davened? I mean, from heaven, he was prevented from doing so. So Rashi says, again, he's basing himself on the Gemara. One of the readings here is, Yaakov left Beersheba, not on the way to go to Haran, but he got all the way to Haran. You know why? Because that's what he was supposed to do. That's what his parents told him to do. If he's going to stop on the way and take a little detour in order to stop off in Yerushalayim, it's not really nice. It's not an appropriate way to listen to one's parents. So he went all the way to Haran. That's Rashi's rendering from the Gemara. Kimata leCharan, when he arrived in Haran, Amar, he said to himself, can it be that the place that I passed over, which is the place where my parents davened, I didn't daven there? So Yayev date lemahadar v'chazar ad Beit El v'kafza lo haaretz. So he decided in his mind to go all the way back. And so he went as far as Beit El. That's where he slept. And that's where the Beit HaMikdash jumped to. Now, yeah, when you read this, and it's from the Gemara. It's not originally in Rashi, but it then made its way into Rashi. Just on this point, what are the problems that Rashi, or the Gemara rather, solves? And what are the problems that it creates in this Perush? It solves certain problems in the words of the Torah, and yet it creates other problems. So I'm looking for the answers to that or suggestions on that first, and they'll take other questions and comments. Go ahead. Shelley, I see you have your hand up on this thing or something else.
Yes, on this thing. Okay. I don't know. Okay, you said this thing came from the Gemara. Fine. Yeah. But there are midrashim that Yaakov does not go to Haran first. He spends 23 years in the yeshiva of Shem ve'eber. So
14.
Obviously 14. Well, obviously his parents didn't tell him, go and spend 14 years in the yeshiva of Shem ve'eber and then go to Haran. So if he's got to go all the way.
Nachon.
Okay.
And by the way, Rashi has not yet mentioned, at least not here, has not mentioned the small detail that, he's been missing for 14 years. Instead, Rashi, in this, again, it's not in the original manuscript, apparently, and it's not in a number of other manuscripts of Rashi, but we have it in a printed text and like in brackets. The Torah Chumash that I'm using has it in square brackets, and it says it's not in all these versions. Right. If you want to amplify that he actually dafka listened to his parents and he did everything by the letter of the law, see, you can't admit that he went 14 years on the way. He stopped off. Well, I'm on the way. On the other hand, there is a reason why he was there for 14 years. There are spiritual reasons, and there's even within the Torah itself, trying to figure out some of the years, there's a gap of a number of years. So Chazal say, it's because he was in the yeshiva of Shem ve'ever. It's a beautiful midrashic idea. This one is that the letter of the law listened to his parents. He went straight, made a beeline for the place. But then he had second thoughts. So he touched base in Haran and he turned around and he went back to go daven. He ran through shul. He went, he had to get through. So he ran through the hallway. He didn't stop. He couldn't stop, say a tehillim or something. So he ran back. But you are quite right. We have all his midrashic traditions. What do you mean he listened to his parents immediately and he went? He stopped off 14 years. It's not immediate by anyone's standard. But there's something here, right, about the realization that in his rush to listen to his, to go to the destination they had to get to, keys, wallet, cell phone, davening. It fell by the wayside. And it's only when he got there that he realized what he had forgotten and not done. Further, his father and his mother sent him with brachas and they let him go. But what did he not realize that he had to do himself? He also had to daven. He also had to go to a place which would be a prayerful place for himself, not just for the brachas his parents gave him. And he didn't. So he did tshuva, if you will. It's quotation marks. He retraced his steps to go somewhere where he could connect to Hashem. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? Yeah, go ahead, Karen, please.
I'm thinking as we're going through all of this about the type of writing that's called magical realism.
Yep.
And how it's really helpful sometimes for me to sort of read Torah with that in mind and realize that he can be in Beit El and he can be in Yerushalayim. It can be both this way and this way. And
right.
Yeah. So I was just thinking it's like Gabriel Garcia Marquez or stuff, except obviously it's Torah. So I'm not saying.
Yeah. But the point is, and that's why I threw that in early on in our discussion this morning, he's asleep. So when he wakes up, by the way, he woke up. Did he wake up in the morning? He woke up when he woke up in the middle of the night. Doesn't mean he literally woke up completely, but he katz Yaakov mishnato. He was startled. Right? He's shocked. And then what happens after? He goes about his way. But no, first he's gonna wake up in the morning, gonna make a matzeva. We'll talk about matzeva already next time. He pours on the matzeva, right? The idea that he's searching for a place where he could daven, and that in his haste initially, again, according to this Gemara, he skipped over it. So, in other words, what the Gemara does, lahavdol, it's lahavdol, but what we thought initially was that the first pasuk was like a title. Yaakov left Beersheba and he went on his way to Haran. Here's what happened on the way. Lahavdol, it's like, you ever see an ancient map of a city? Everything is flat. Like when it's drawn, it's supposed to be like a cityscape, not just the map. A map obviously is flat, but it's going to show you like it's supposed to be like there's one of Yerushalayim, but instead, since everything's flat, the technology and the style of putting things in is that everything looks flat. The people there isn't a sense of three-dimensional depth in what's being painted or what's drawn. In other words, Chazal say, if it says in the Torah he left from point A to got to point B, that's not a title. He went from point A to point B. Then how could he be back in another place after? The answer is when he got from point A to point B, he went back towards point A and he didn't get all the way, but he got to Beit El, which used to be called Luz. And then he fell asleep because that's where Yerushalayim came to greet him. And Karen, back to what you said, the bride and the groom are meeting each other. They're coming out of the chutz, right? He's coming back. It's coming to him. Boom, boom. He falls asleep. Ladder, dreams, right? Shar HaShemayim. And right then and there, Shem talks to him. I had no idea that I had come to the place. He hadn't even arrived yet, but he understood something about what it was and what he was doing in that spot. The Ramban quotes from Rashi. He quotes the Medrash from Rashi again, and the whole thing with the incline, and he gives us basically in longhand of what happened, right? In the Ramban's edition, of Rashi, he has the whole Gemara that I told you was not in the original manuscripts. He quotes it. And he says there are three people who had the land jump to meet them. One was Eliezer Eved Avram, another one was Yaakov Avinu, and the third one not for now. So, the idea that it jumped toward him. Other times also, Har Moriah jumps to and Har Sinai are jumping toward each other, something like that. Hine beferush omrim shekevan she'ala belibo v'charan lachzor kafta lo haaretz u'pagro makam shipala bo avotav lo shechazar lebeit el lo shekafatz Har Moriah u'bal Sham. Okay. Now, what this means, what Ramban is alleging and claiming, is he didn't go to Beit El, and he didn't go to Luz, and he didn't go to Yerushalayim. You know where Yaakov Avinu is? He's in Haran. But as soon as it came into his mind that he wanted to go back there, immediately, that's what happened. Lo shechazar Beit El, lo shekavatz Har Moriah bal Sham, but rather what happened? In that spot where he is, that's where he falls asleep. That's where he has the dream. That's where he encounters Hashem. And that's why he's so surprised, because he's not even in the area. I mean, once we're saying that he was asleep and he's thinking about Yerushalayim, couldn't he also be asleep? Sorry, he's falling asleep in Beit El and he thinks he's in Yerushalayim. He's imagining Yerushalayim. Couldn't he also imagine he was in Haran and he's thinking back? So Ramban allows for that that possibility. But it makes sense, yeah. And he explains. He goes into this possibility, starts analyzing it. The idea that the state of mind and the revelation to him could have been in a different place than actually where he was geographically. Yeah. So the idea that the land could jump, he could be in a way in Chutz La'aretz and he could still have a piece of Eretz Yisrael with him. Sings to me.
Rabbi,
Helen, go ahead, please.
Okay, this is a Kleinigkeit, but they have something to do. When does a sulam remain a sulam, and when does it become a gesher? So it makes a big difference in this case if you're changing it into a gesher, because the malachim are olim v'yordim in a rather, it appears to be in a very business-like way. And it kind of looks more like a sulam than a gesher.
Yeah.
And so I kind of want to stick to the up and down sulam version. And then on Rosh Hashanah, we say yeshiva shel mala v'yeshiva shel mata.
Right.
So
I definitely hear it. And listen, I think it's legitimate. That's not what Rashi wants to argue. Rashi wants to argue there's a way to geographically connect three disparate locations, with one being the place where the top of the ladder is.
But then you're changing it to a gesher instead of a sulam.
Well, a sulam is a gesher. It's just up down, isn't it? It is a bridge. It's bridging Shemaim and Aretz.
In a very specific style.
Uh-huh.
I have to get a fireman here to tell me when he changes his ladder to vertical or elliptical.
Uh-huh.
I don't like to go away from the word. To me is very important. Rather than the word being plastic, its specificity has a lot to do with it as well.
I certainly hear it. Okay, I have to think more about which one, but you take the one that sings to you more. Listen, I have more to say on the subject because what Ramban's going to go into,
Okay.
I'll leave you with this to think about because we're out over time and I got to run. But you could also make a case that Beit El, the place where where Yaakov is now sleeping, might be actually, of all places, in Beersheba. And that he's there because, and there's a midrashic case to be made, or also another one of the opinions in the Medrash, that when his father and his mother told him to go to Padan Aram, they were really in the vicinity, once again, of Hebron. And that's where the brachas took place. And therefore, and that's really Eretz Mugrei Aviv, and therefore needed permission to leave Eretz Yisrael. Where did his father go when he was going out of Eretz Yisrael and did not get permission? And therefore he went to Grar. That was in Beersheba. Where had Avram Avinu gone to daven and plant an Eshel, etc.? That was all in Beersheba. It was a place that was known for tefillah. Therefore, he wanted to go there. And there he had a dream when that's the bottom of the ladder, and then he sees that the ladder goes up to Yerushalayim. Again, not the way Helen would like to hear it, but maybe some others on the call are more receptive to it. And he hears that there is a place, that Yerushalayim, that's the top of the ladder, and he sees a connection between those places, i.e., he sees he has permission from Hashem to leave Eretz Yisrael. Anyway, obviously all labyrinthine and bamboozling on one level, but I hope instead you understand that for its many levels of complexity and layers upon layers of trying to understand different vantage points of what is the Beit El, where is Yaakov Avinu located, and what was the purpose, if any, deliberate, conscious, or unconscious, and seemingly accidental, that he had this encounter with Hashem.
Rabbi Engel.
Tamar, final comment, because I got to run. Yeah.
A very quick comment. I'm thinking of Ben Yehuda so many centuries later saying, "Ani b'mizrach v'libi b'fa'atema." I'm sorry.
Rabbi Yehuda Halevi. Right.
Ani b'marav v'libi b'fa'atema. Whatever. I am in the West, but my heart is.
My heart is in the East. Yeah.
In the East.
And that's what we have here. That's what we have here. Correct. Yes, Koach. Have a great day, everybody. Looking forward to seeing you on Thursday. Be well.